My name is Patrick Stewart, and I'm recording these words in 1993 on the planet Earth. On the fictional TV program Star Trek The Next Generation, I play Jean-Luc Picard, captain of the Starship Enterprise. As an actor, I've explored the galaxy on television, and now I'm actually speaking to you who live on Mars. Greetings.
The greeting you just heard introduced the radio section of a DVD called Visions of Mars. It's now on the Red Planet aboard NASA's Phoenix lander. There are instructions on the label how to play this ancient artifact. The disc is a gift. It's a library of materials from the late 20th century for the humans someday living on Mars. When they find the old spacecraft carrying it, they will receive our gift, reminding them how writers and artists from many lands imagined Mars and Martians. These stories inspired the generation that eventually got us there. I'm John Lomberg. In 1993, the Planetary Society's director, Louis Friedman, asked me to direct the creation of this disk, which finally got to Mars in 2008. The disk is still on Mars, awaiting its discovery by our descendants. The disk also contains greetings from some people who have thought a lot about Mars. Here's some of what Judith Merrill said. She was a writer and editor and a science fiction legend. Speaking from the science fiction library in Toronto named for her, she issued some cautionary guidance for future explorers.
Most early spacefaring stories were patterned on the sad history of Earth's partisan warfares. Martians invading Earth were literally monsters. Terrestrials invading Mars were brave pioneers, civilizing colonists. Typically, each advance in astronomy or rocketry stimulated space fiction writers to new extrapolations. Typically, the thinking of astronomers, rocket engineers, and nascent spacecraft designers was being inspired and conditioned by reading science fiction. Now, the earth sciences are making us frighteningly aware of the damage done to our native planet by our philosophies of conquest and dominion. And our stories of Mars are moving away from the old idea of the conquest of space. We want to revise, not replay, the history of Earth. We have progressed from the idea of Martian as monster, through Martian as mentor, to Martian as just other. We are beginning to rethink our old dream of terraforming Mars, and speculating instead on how best to adapt ourselves to suit the planet. The stories we send you here, taken together, tell a larger story. We who have lived and worked in this confluence of science and speculation send a message of hope. When our descendants, your ancestors, came to live on your world, we pray they came seeking not to conquer a planet, but to find consonance with it.
Here's what Carl Sagan had to say.
I don't know why you're on Mars. Maybe you're there because we've recognized we have to carefully move small asteroids around to avert the possibility of one impacting the Earth with catastrophic consequences. And while we're up in near-Earth space, it's only a hop, skip, and a jump to Mars. Or maybe we're on Mars because we recognize that if there are human communities on many worlds, the chances of us being rendered extinct by some catastrophe on one world is much less. Or maybe we're on Mars because of the magnificent science that could be done there. The gates of the wonder world are opening in our time. Or maybe we're on Mars because we have to be, because there is a deep nomadic impulse built into us by the evolutionary process We come, after all, from hunter-gatherers, and for 99.9% of our tenure on Earth, we've been wanderers, and the next place to wander to is Mars. But whatever the reason you're on Mars is, I'm glad you're there, and I wish I was with you.
But perhaps of greatest interest to our future descendants on Mars is this account of Viking 1's first successful landing on Mars. Come back with me to that incredible night in 1976. The title of Mark Washburn's History of the Mission said it all. We had arrived at Mars at last.
In 1976, the United States of America sent 2 robot spacecraft to Mars. The Viking lander's prime mission was to search for life. The following program was made by John Lomberg for the radio service of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. All of the material was recorded in Pasadena, California, at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, command center for the mission. It documents the Viking landing and the reaction of scientists and science fiction writers to our first real contact with Mars.
July 20th, 7 years to the day after the first people walked on the moon. What you'll hear now is the landing as it actually happened. The commentators are George Sands and Al Hibbs, speaking on Viking Control's closed-circuit network.
The Viking 1 lander continues its approach toward the Martian surface. It's roughly 4,000 miles above the surface now.
The object in space, the Viking lander, I believe, has at this point felt the upper atmosphere, even though we won't know about that for 19 minutes. So it is inexorably going to the surface.
The GCSC indicates that we have powered on the stagnation pressure, narrow shell pressure.
Nominal touchdown is at 5:12 Pacific Daylight Time. Now, that's an Earth receive time. That means that that's when we should get the signal for touchdown.
So it actually occurred how much before
It
that?
actually occurred roughly 19 minutes earlier, because that's how long it takes the signals to get from Mars to here. The intricate way in which the lander sequence goes through the descent time period and the way it steers itself is all done by the lander computer. And that's sort of an artificial intelligence, you might say, that's been designed by us, that has stored in it all the programming it needs to handle all these various conditions that it might run into and land safely on Mars.
Within 10 seconds, landing
If the atmosphere is nominal,
will have occurred,
the Viking should be on the surface of Mars by now, one way or another. We're now going to spend the next 19 minutes finding out what that way is.
Right.
ACS confirms maneuver in progress.
Gene Roddenberry and Nichelle Nichols of Star Trek.
I guess we have people in science fiction have a sort of partnership with scientists. They provide the hardware, the science, the dreams, and we provide the stories, hopefully, that it keeps the audience interested in identifying with all of this.
Space program is the doorway to the existence, the future existence of a Star Trek universe. And this is the single most important thing in our century of all space exploration since landing on the moon. I would say the first man on the moon. And that is a possibility that there really is life out there, as we believe there is.
When Viking lands, what do you hope to see?
Oh, a little green man walking up saying, "Hi, we've been waiting for you."
The lander should be on the surface at this time. The GCSC indicates that we have initiated the pre-entry pitchover where we'll hold the -20-degree angle of attack.
We now have the next graph. It's just been put up by the Flight Path Analysis Group. There are no points of data on it yet, but they have drawn in what they predict for the altitude as a function of time. So we'll be coming down the altitude in thousands of feet, starting at 800,000 feet, which is sort of arbitrarily defined as a point of entry, and then on down. And they'll be picking up data from radars to put actual data points on that plot, and we can compare them ourselves and see how they compare with the nominal.
And the things to look for are 0.05 G, 1.1 kilometers per second, chute deployment at 19,400 feet, and engine ignition at 4,000 feet.
this whole process that we're going through, first of all, the air shell phase, and then the parachute phase, and then the terminal descent phase, are all designed to slow the lander down. And you get down to a speed relative to the surface of 8 feet per second, and that's the constant velocity with which you land. But when you hit the atmosphere, way back up at entry, you're going at 15,000 feet per second. By the time the parachute comes out, you've slowed down to 1,000 feet per second, and by the time you turn on the terminal descent engines, you're going to 200 feet per second. But you're going in roughly, let's see, say 9 minutes from 15,000 feet per second to 8 feet per second.
800,000 feet. 800,000 feet. Let's see. Place we define as entry.
RE number 2, locked in tracking. ACS confirms coordinate transformation change.
The radars are on. That means we will now be getting data as to where we are.
In about 1 minute, we should sense 05
Current's up to 7.9.
There's the first data point right on the nominal curve. Now
15,000
that's
feet per second, 595,000 feet. 560,000 feet.
Data G base 1.
500,000 feet, 15,350 feet per second.
I've simply wanted to know about Mars all my life. I started being curious about Mars when I started reading Edgar Rice Burroughs back, in 1918, I think.
Robert Heinlein, author of Stranger in a Strange Land.
At that time, everyone thought that Professor Lowell's notions about canals were the last word with respect to Mars. Now, we've learned more, but we still have so much more to learn that before this morning is over, we will know far more than we know now. So I don't have anything to say as to what Mars is like yet. We'll know more shortly. All of you will know more than I know right now when you hear this.
314,000 feet, 15,480 feet per second.
Third point falls on the nominal curve.
We sense 0.05 Gs.
Telecom lead, how's the SNR and high rate? SNR is holding very well. It's reading 8.1.
In the atmosphere now.
All days dropped. 1.1 kilometers per second has been sensed.
1.1 kilometers per second sense. That
Negative
means
200,000 feet.
200,000 feet. That means that we can now put out some of the instrument, some of the instruments
1.2 Gs.
that
Locked in tracking RE2.
cannot stand the temperature of entry.
2.7 Gs.
Pressure and temperature
15,000
sensors.
feet per second. 8.4 Gs. 88,000 feet. Excellent convergence. 6,000 feet per second.
Oh, we're coming down. We're coming down.
Mr. Hyland, what do you think your reaction will be when Viking lands and the first pictures come in?
I will be so excited I will hardly be able to contain myself. I will feel very much the way I did when we heard the words, "Eagle has landed," just 7 years ago exactly today.
In about 1 more minute, the chute should come out.
85,700 feet, 3,223 feet per second. 0.8 Gs. Convergence good. 0.5 Gs. 74,000 feet, 2327 feet per second.
The chute has been deployed.
0.4 Gs. 6,200 feet, 182 feet per second.
Almost in burn.
4,800 feet, 177 feet per second. Confirm roll over. Parachute separation. 4,200 feet. Two loops to the high mode.
Minus 105.
0.3 Gs. 2,600 feet, 188 feet per second.
On terminal descent engine.
Pitch up confirmed. 1,200 feet, 140 feet per second.
So the engine is
0.6
started.
Gs. 20 feet per 366 feet, 73 feet per second. ACS is close to vertical.
So we're coming down, straight down.
Nav is green for touchdown. ACS is green, 1.5 degrees per second max, 0.2 Gs. 8 feet per second. Touchdown, we have touchdown. Excellent zone.
We have touchdown.
Nebula zone. Camera 1 zone. We're looking good. Ladder lead power is decreased. Copy power. We're out of sync.
We have several indications of touchdown.
So we have completed
We're on
all
the
of
surface.
that.
Looking good. Go. Yes, we have a touchdown time of 12 hours, 12 minutes, 07.1 seconds.
We should go to Mars just as we do all the most exciting, most wonderful things in life so that we can survive. Everything is survival. Everything
Ray
that we
Bradbury,
do
author of
is
The Martian
worthwhile,
Chronicles.
which enables us to exist in this universe of ours. I sometimes am astounded when I think of the average person who doesn't realize that we live in this universe, that we live in a star system, that we're incredible, that we're miraculous, that we're impossible. We must move out to the stars. We are responsible to the gift of life in the universe, in this part of the universe. We're the only things alive right around here, as far as we know. So that's a big responsibility. And space travel is a responsible way of reacting to the gift of life that we have. And so we're talking theology here suddenly, aren't we? And not science, not politics, and anything of that sort. It's being responsible to our position in the Milky Way, huh?
On the 20th day of August in 1975 came the big countdown, and the crew on the ground said the bird is now alive. So they sent me off to old Barsoom, just a looking at a planet with some elbow room. But there's dust and snow. It's a crazy kind of place for me to love it so. More dismal and deserted than the plain of jars, but I love it and I call it Mars. The 20th day of July in 1976. Well, I did my number when they hollered go, but I could have been in a fix. Now I got to the bottom of the gravity well, and it went okay, but I was scared as hell. How'd you like to see the Christie plains with 800 Earthlings picking your brains? But if there's a message in a mission to Mars, it's gotta be tomorrow the stars.
Viking Science Mission Planning Director, Gentry Lee.
As we started watching the points come in, and they started being marked, they were negligibly different from the center of the line, one right after another, and you could feel the excitement, the tempo building as each dot went blunk, 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 right on the middle. The landing, and then on top of that, the communications were expected to be blacked out for up to 45 or 50 seconds, but that never happened. The relay system performed way above anything anybody had ever expected, so we got all the data down in real time that we had anticipated. Finally, when it came to landing, the landing ended up only 15 seconds away from plan. Now, to sort of get an idea of how super nominal that is, you have to realize that we separated when we were way up 20,000 miles or so away from, 15,000 miles away from the spot where we were going to land. And we then flew an entire path whose landing on the surface of Mars differed during that 3.5 hours by only 15 seconds. And that gives you some idea for how good it was.
Dave Pieri, of the team that operates Viking's cameras.
I was upstairs in 264, and I sat in front of the little screen, a little monitor, where everybody else was in the big room, okay? And I really didn't want to go in there. I just watched on a little screen all by myself, and I just watched them plot it as it came down, and it really got scary when it dropped, 30,000 feet in about, 25 seconds or something like that. And then finally it settled down, and the sensors hit, and you could see on the readouts that it had landed, and everybody cheered and everything. And then it was quiet, and I just watched where it said camera 2, off, camera 2 off, camera 2 off, camera 2 off, and all of a sudden, bang! Camera 2 came on, and I practically fell out of my chair. I just practically fainted. It was great.
And there's the first piece of information coming in.
Half an hour after landing, Viking 1 transmits the first pictures back from the surface of Mars. Tim Much, leader of the lander imaging team, and Al Hibbs, speaking on the closed-circuit TV.
Tantalizingly thin sliver of picture.
Yep, that's it.
You rocks.
Oh, that's beautiful. May not look like much, but it's lovely. Oh. Yeah, I'm supposed to say something at this point. I just don't feel like talking.
Well, there are rocks.
There are rocks, yes. There's rocks, and there's sediment, but it's just incredible to see that the Mars, is really there.
It's almost 45 years since Viking landed, and we have sent many more missions to orbit, land, and rove on Mars. More are on their way. But Mars has only begun to give up its secrets. As we return to the Red Planet, let's never forget the pioneers that paved the way.